I'm going to be sending this recording out to all people that have registered for this webinar as a follow-up to today. And if you're part of an English hub, I will also be sending the recording to every English hub as well. So welcome, as I said. I'm Nicola Romaine. I will have met some of you previously. I'm National Primary Literacy Advisor here at Pearson. Please do pop any questions in the chat. So my colleague Lucy Browse will aim to reply those during the course of the webinar. So specifically, particularly the product questions, she will aim to answer. If there's anything pedagogical or something that we're unsure of, we'll definitely follow up in the follow-up email when we send that recording out to you, and endeavour to send out an FAQ or send out some sort of responses to those questions as that in that follow-up email, which will come to you tomorrow or latest sort of Friday, if that's okay. Okay, so as I said, do pop any questions that you may have in the Q&A as we go along. Okay, so here's a quick recap of some of the key facts that make Bug Club Phonics a great SSP. So I think it's well worth kind of looking at those really, just very quickly at the beginning of this webinar, just to kind of make sure that we're all on the same sort of page, and that we all understand that it's a validated DFE SSP, for example. Some other really interesting facts about Bug Club Phonics that some of you may not be fully aware of. So it's a comprehensive phonics teaching programme centred around an accessible and inclusive teaching approach and backed by evidence. So evidence shows that working together fosters that sense of social inclusion for pupils and really boosts the performance of those that may be progressing more slowly. And as I said, it's one of the DFE's approved systematic synthetic phonics programmes, and we obviously meet all of that validation criteria. It is a whole class programme, and we do now have, as part of our updates, which I'll be presenting to you shortly, catch up for those at risk of falling behind. There was obviously some catch up guidance in the original programme, but we've added to that in order to provide clarity and to really respond to what teachers have been telling us. It is based on the progression used in the renowned Clackmannanshire study, and that's well worth a read. And I will send that document out as a follow-up as well to this webinar in case you haven't sort of read that. And the Clackmannanshire study itself proved that systematic synthetic phonics was the most effective way to teach children to read. So that is a really groundbreaking report, and I think well worth reading. If there are any members of staff in your school who aren't familiar with that study, then it kind of puts Bug Club Phonics in context, really. The programme was also analysed as part of the Bug Club UCLA Institute of Education randomised control trial, which showed pupils were 11 months ahead of their expected age equivalent reading score after just 5 terms of using the programme. And finally, the Clackmannanshire study shows that Bug Club Phonics as an SSP is very effective for the lowest attaining 20%. So just some sort of stats and some facts there before we get started. So I wanted to provide you with this webinar to talk you through the key updates that we have recently added to the programme. So you will know that there have been many updates that have kind of come very recently. So this term and sort of the summer term, really. And this is just an opportunity to kind of have a moment in time to have a look at those key updates to ensure that everybody's up to speed with those. And of course, as a follow-up, you are more than welcome to get in touch with me, with us at Pearson. There are different ways that you can do that in order to make sure that you are getting the best from your implementation and from those updates that we've made. So all of the updates, and you can see those key updates on the slide in front of you, have come from teachers, from our conversations and our research, who've let us know how we could make their experience of using Bug Club Phonics a better one. And obviously we're still having those conversations now. We've got lots of updates live already, and I will be talking through those in a minute. And we're still making updates. So just wanted to say that these updates haven't stopped. They are ongoing. Obviously, you know, capacity-wise, we can only do so many at a time. But just wanted to reassure you that that will be continuing, and we will share that with you on the roadmap and in different ways as we go along to the end of this term and beyond. So we're really interested, obviously, in hearing from you as well. We value your thoughts and your feedback very much, and that is the basis, really, as well as national guidance. That is the main basis of any updates that we make. So please do let us know if there is anything that you would like to share. So what's new then? So in this webinar specifically, I'm going to be covering the pace of planning and what's new there, the assessment trackers, the new catch-up guidance that we've got, digital content and functionality, integrated professional development and parental engagement, and additional formats of classroom resources as part of your subscription. So just to give you a taste of what's going to be covered. So we're going to start with pace and planning. So we're just going to recap then the pace and order of teaching, if you like, in Bug Club Phonics. So what you see on the slide there is what you are probably used to seeing before we made the update. So you've got there the units that are set out on ALP, and of course you can click into those. They're hyperlinked into the lessons themselves. And then you've got a screen grab that I've taken from the teaching guides, which shows you the structure from phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, phase 5, and into phase 6. So that's the kind of traditional pace and planning that we've got in the programme. And just to kind of capture what we've got, so in reception, Bug Club Phonics teaches a new grapheme and related phoneme in every phoneme session. So we've got a series of phoneme sessions, and this fast pace, backed up by daily revision of past teaching, has really proved the most effective and successful method of phonics teaching. And that echoes back to the Clackmanninshire study. So this means that the basic 40+ phonemes are acquired quickly, and early reading skills develop rapidly. And decodable readers are introduced after just 2 weeks teaching at the end of Unit 2. And then this enables children to apply the taught strategies and enjoy contextualised reading really early on. And that's part of the ethos of the programme. And the order of grapheme introduction and, of course, the units on ALP ensures that children are able to start reading and spelling a wide range of words at the earliest possible stage. And then we've got units 13 to 27 of Bug Club Phonics, which offer coverage of phase 5 phonic progression. And then, just as an aside to that, alternative pronunciations of known graphemes for reading are covered within the Bug Club Phonics programme at the point of teaching the alternative spellings. That's really important. So, for instance, the pronunciation of the known grapheme C in the word scent is taught in Unit 24, when all the spelling alternatives for the phoneme are taught. And then we have phase 6 Bug Club Phonics, which supports learning more complex multisyllabic words and morphemes such as prefixes and suffixes. And this teaching occurs in the phoneme and the language sessions and in guided independent work, with children also covering less common grapheme phoneme correspondences and phonic irregularities at this time as well, and applying their phonics skills in a wider range of reading and spelling activity as well. So that's the traditional, what we had before the updates, kind of pace and planning there on the slide. Okay, so what have we included? So we've included flexible weekly and termly planning and guidance to support your delivery of the programme. So these documents, which you would find by going into the main landing page on BCP for reception and Key Stage 1, and navigating down to the section which says pace and planning, and there's a screen grab there for you on the slide which shows you that. These documents are editable, and we've made them editable on purpose so that you can easily amend them to suit your class. So that's not suggesting that you would widely deviate from the kind of progression we suggest, but we are mindful that some of you will have been using the programme for many years, and that you may have developed your own long-term plans and termly planning to suit your cohorts and your contexts. So we couldn't necessarily come wading in this term and kind of say, right, there we go, you have to scrap everything that you've done, everything that you've implemented and embedded in your school. You know your context, you know your children. So there is some flex there within the termly planning, but we've also had to respond to teacher feedback who have said to us that they really wanted this kind of structure, this kind of mapping, which some other SSPs may have. So that's why we've put this in place. But as I say, we've made it editable, and we do say that there is room for kind of flex within that, in support of your own sort of context, really. So you will, as I said, you will find these on the main sort of landing page for Key Stage 1 and reception for Bug Club Phonics. So, as I said, schools will have developed their own sometimes as well. And research tells us that some teachers want this, and some teachers want to use their own, if you like. So the terming plans themselves, we've got them for reception, year one, and up to Christmas of year two. So that's how the pace and progression and the progression of Bug Club Phonics runs now. And I will show you in a minute what that looks like in terms of phases. But this termly plan is structured around the teach, practice, review, assess, track, consolidate, and catch up model, if you like. So what we've done in the termly plan, if you haven't had a chance to have a look at it, is we've put in moments to be able to do all of those different things. So you will still be able to achieve everything that's needed to be taught by the phonics screening check of year one, for example, but there is room to breathe. And there are those specific moments in time to be able to assess and review and consolidate children's learning so that you can really kind of focus on any sort of knowledge gaps that your class may have, or groups of children, or one-to-one, individual children may have as well. So the content itself is broken down by units. So traditionally, you've got those units on ALP, and you still have those. We've taken those units and we've spread them across multiple weeks of instruction. So each unit may take a week, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, depending on that content. And each unit is broken down into individual phoneme-based lesson plans that teach GPCs through digital phoneme lessons, which you're aware of, obviously, if you're using the programme. And then every unit concludes with a language session, which includes teaching of associated irregular or tricky words and high-frequency words as well. So depending on how long the unit is spread across, if it's spread across a week, then your language session would be at the end of that week. If it's spread across 2 weeks, it would be at the end of that 2-week period of time. And if the unit is spread across 3 weeks, then you would have the language session, which is a consolidation session, at the end of that 3 weeks. We've also got corresponding weekly plans as well, which include tailorable lesson breakdowns as well, which are editable and you can kind of adapt for your own use to a certain degree. And they're also available to download and self-print. So additionally, we have an abundance of digital and printable supplementary resources, which include digital magnetic boards, resource cards, word cards, sound mats, grapheme charts, videos, all of those things that are now highlighted on those weekly plans for you. So from the get-go, by looking at those weekly plans, what you need to have in your hands, if you like, ready to teach for a week. So that's the termly plan. So we've got teach in there. We've also got opportunities to practice. So at the end of each unit, Bug Club Phonics offers a series of unit-specific digital practice assessment games, which can be taken on a class-wide level or in small groups. And that is up to you how you use those. They are also flexible. Additionally, at the end of each phase, there are phase-level digital practice assessment games, which help students practice both real and alien words. And they're really engaging, and they really help children to solidify concepts by putting into practice what they've already learned in the classroom. So that they're really intentional for consolidation. And children are also free, they can return to them, to those digital practice games as a method to help those particularly who may struggle with particular concepts. So we're really saying that they are really, really useful for those children who really, really struggle. We've also got moments in the termly plan for review. So review or revision weeks are a chance for teachers to use their own methods to identify which phonemes children find most difficult on a class-wide level. So taking the chance to reteach those areas to the whole class, and then divide the cohort into groups according to which sounds they still find difficult, to help each and every child do their best in each assessment. So that's the moment in time for review that we've put into that termly plan as well. And that's giving you a bit of autonomy to reflect on your cohort, your class, and to decide which children need to have to revisit certain concepts. And then assessment. We've put moments of assessment in there as well. So there are different types of assessment in Bug Club Phonics, and I'll be coming to this in a bit more detail in a while, which teachers can choose to use with flexibility. So we've got assessment sheets, which you're probably familiar with, numbered 1 to 7 for reception and 8 to 13 for Key Stage 1. And they should be considered as the central summative assessments, if you like, and they help to gather information on progress at crucial points across the progression, and we have got those mapped out in the termly plan as well. We've also got phase assessments, which are really useful for providing insight into a child's progress, and they're designed specifically to help children to prepare for the phonics screening check, for example, at the end of year one. So you may choose to use those with every child, which I would personally be doing to get the best possible amount of information for children's progress, or just with those children for whom you'd like to gather more information. We've also got, you can see there on the slide, at the bottom of the pace and planning section, a schedule of assessment, which has also been updated for both reception and Key Stage 1. And you can also download that as well. So the assessment is actually mapped into the termly planning and into the schedule of assessment as well. And then we have track. So we have downloadable assessment trackers as well, which I'll be coming to soon, which are available for reception and Key Stage 1. And they include all assessments indicated in that schedule of assessment chart as well. Each assessment has its own tab, which we'll have a look at in a bit more detail soon, so that you can really sort of track which assessments you're using, and you can enter results for every assessment question for every child in those. A bit more about that later on. We've also added into the termly plan moments to consolidate. So there's no point in assessing children without kind of reviewing that assessment, looking at knowledge gaps, and then providing opportunities to kind of consolidate. So consolidate weeks are a chance to ensure that children are comfortable with the phonics concepts that they've already learned. It gives you that kind of breathing space. And as these weeks appear after phase or termly assessments, you can use the results of the assessments, obviously, to measure the pace and level of knowledge that each child has gained. And during this time, it's advisable to revisit content, and as I'm sure you would do already, but it's now kind of mapped out for you, so from a fidelity perspective, and provide those digital practice games for children who would benefit from those. And then, of course, your decodable readers to ensure children are confident in their reading. So you may choose to temporarily split the class into groups according to levels of understanding at this time. And we are saying that that is okay to do that. So this is based on your sort of teacher judgment. You know, if you decided to do that as part of your consolidation week based on your assessment data. And then we have catch-up, which we will be having a look at in a short while, that new catch-up guidance. So formative and summative assessment opportunities across the delivery of the programme will really highlight knowledge gaps that a child or a group of children might have. So in conjunction with the assessment trackers, the Bug Club Phonics catch-up guidance document can be used to inform the appropriate level interventions suitable to each child at any given time. So we'll have a look at that in a short while. So that's the termly plan, and everything that you need really mapped out for you from the beginning of reception to the end of the autumn term of year 2 is fully mapped out in those termly plans, which, as I said, are editable and which can be used in your school as per your context and your classes, your cohorts. So just a quick look at those termly expectations then. So I've tried to capture what is covered in each term. So in reception, term 1A and 1B, we cover phase 2 in the progression. So all of those 19 GPCs would be covered in term 1 of reception. And then reception 2A, 2B and 3A would be phase 3. And then reception 3B, we cover phase 4. And then for year 1 and 2, so year 1, term 1 and 1B, we review phases 2 to 4, and then we start teaching phase 5. And I think we'd all agree that all children will probably benefit from reviewing previous content, just to ensure that there's absolute embedment there of what they've been taught. So that's an opportunity at the beginning of year 1 to really assess and consolidate any kind of gaps that may have occurred across phases 2 to 4 before they embark on phase 5. And then year 1, term 2A and 2B, we teach phase 5. Year 1, term 3A and 3B, phase 5, with a consideration of the phonics screening check, which is also mapped into that termly plan as well. And then for year 2, term 1 and 1B, we review and consolidate phase 5, and then we start phase 6. And what we say is, if there are still knowledge gaps based on assessments by the end of year 2, autumn term, that we would suggest that children then take a different path, and we would probably recommend that children go on to our rapid phonics intervention programme at the point of spring term year 2. So that's the kind of coverage. As I said, we also have weekly plans. So the weekly plans are completely matched to the termly plans. However, we only got teaching weeks in the weekly plans at this moment in time. That's not to say that we won't have weekly plans for kind of review or consolidate in the future, but at the moment they are just for teach. So some of you may have noticed that there may be gaps in those weekly plans. They're not actually gaps, they are just that we've just got the teach units, the teach weeks in there. So, as I said before, weekly plans teach units across a week, 2 or 3 weeks, depending on that content. And they follow the lesson structure, from the lesson focus to introduction, to revisit and review, teach, practice and apply for every phoning session. And what we've tried to do with these weekly plans is take on board again teacher feedback and absolutely put everything that you might need for a week's teaching in this weekly plan. So you can download it off, and you can share it in your team with TAs, with other teachers who are teaching the content. And you can then refer to the plans and have a look at the words, for example, that you might need to teach during that week. We do have an opportunity in the weekly plans now to revise words, so that is helpful, I'm sure. And you can then download the words that you need from the word cards on ALP as well. So it's just to help you to have an overview of what you're going to need during any given week. So there are phoning sessions on there, and then you will have the language session. So what you'll notice is if a weekly plan for a given week doesn't finish with the end of a unit, if you like, you wouldn't have a language session on that. So it would come at the end of that unit. So it may come at the end of week 3, for example. So as I say, at the end of each unit, you would have that language session. So in the example on the slide, it is just covered in a week. So you've got 4 phoneme sessions there. And then on the 5th day, you've got the language session. And as you can see, you've got there any captions or sentences that would be covered in the teaching in that week as well as any irregular or tricky words that are covered. We also have the nod towards reading practice, so decodable reading books that you would need to cover during that week for children's reading practice. We also have the relevant PCMs on there and the digital games and the digital assessment games that you would possibly use during that week as well. So we think that they are really helpful for teachers and schools to get organised at the beginning of a week to be able to sort of gather all their resources together. It's like a sort of top level overview, really. And then as the number of GPC's children can read and spell increases, more complex captions and sentences come into the programme, as I'm sure you're aware of, for reading and for spelling and writing, all of which we've pulled out. You can see them there on the example on the slide and put into those weekly plans for your convenience. So even though you may not do anything with them necessarily apart from use them on the teaching screens as per your sort of normal teaching sequence, they're still there for you in case you want to use them in some other way for children's practice and application. So there's the termly plans and the weekly plans, which, as I say, brand new. Some of you will be using those already. And as I said before, any questions that you may have around these new updates, please do pop them in the Q&A. Lucy will be answering some of them. Any that are not answered, then we can follow up with those definitely, after the webinar. So in addition to the daily teaching sessions, obviously children need to be given regular opportunities to practice sounding and blending words in a meaningful context. So another part of our sort of teacher research has shown us that teachers wanted some clarity around reading practice guidance in the programme. So we know that our decodable books are absolutely gorgeous. They're absolutely fantastic. But we also recognised that we needed more rigorous guidance around how to use these to practice phonics in the classroom. So we've now got the Bug Club Phonics reading guidance, which you will also find in that pace and progression section on the landing page of Bug Club Phonics. And it is around a 3-session model. So the first session is on decoding, and the second session is on comprehension. The third session is comprehension with a focus on speedy reading. So we suggest 3 sessions a week. I know that some of you, from my conversations with some of you on the Facebook group, for example, from those kind of meetings I've had with some of you, are adding more sessions to your reading practice during the week. That's absolutely fine, but we would obviously recommend that you don't do any less than 3 sessions a week. So we really encourage those sessions for everybody, but for children who need that additional support, we would obviously recommend that they have daily practice sessions, and depending on your capacity in school, that kind of one-to-one daily practice as well with those children that would really benefit from that. If you're familiar with our decodable reading books, you will know that inside the cover of each Bug Club Phonics reader, there is everything needed to run a successful reading practice session. Now, that's been extracted and expanded on to make this Bug Club Phonics reading guidance document that you will find on ALP. So it's all in line with what you're already using, the Bug Club Phonics decodable readers. It's just expanding on that and providing you with more clarity, really. And then, of course, books can be allocated for home reading as well, which I'm sure some of you are doing, either in print or digital, and that is absolutely down to school preference. I know that some schools that I've been speaking to recently, parents are increasingly not wanting digital books for home use because they feel that children are on technology enough already, so they're asking for print books, but that's entirely up to you how you do that. What is important, though, is that books should be matched to secure phonics knowledge. So for most children, this will be the GPCs taught in class, and for some, it will be GPCs lagging behind. So use your teacher judgment to decide which books those children should be on. So as I say, the majority of children likely to be on what you've just taught them, but then some children obviously won't be able to cope with that. And we should never ask children, obviously, to read GPCs that they're not secure on. So use your teacher judgment to give them, to match books to their secure knowledge. So your own context obviously should guide you here. Some of you will be familiar with the fact that we've got, in addition to Bug Club Phonics decodable books, that we've also got Bug Club independent books. Some of you will have those in your schools already. Now, the Bug Club independents are also 100% decodable up to phase 5. Bug Club independent, and I think this is where some confusion comes in, do run up to dark red book band sort of for year 6 level, but up to phase 5 they are fully decodable, which means that if you've got them in your school, you can absolutely use them with Bug Club Phonics as well. So some schools are using Bug Club Phonics decodable readers in school for that reading practice, those 3 sessions, and then they're giving children their Bug Club independent books matched to their secure knowledge of GPCs to go home for that kind of consolidation at an independent level. Now, we have got a new document, actually, which is brand new, which I will send to you as a follow-up, which shows you the sort of slight nuances between Bug Club decodable books. So they're all fully decodable, as I said, but there are some slight differences in kind of layout and that kind of thing. And this document might help you to make decisions around how to use them. Again, get back in touch if you're unsure. We're here to help, but we will send that as a follow-up as well. That's a super useful document. Okay, so moving on to assessment. So we've got assessment trackers, and the assessment tracker has been updated recently. And this allows for teachers to track both individual and class-wide progress. So again, the trackers are found on that landing page of Bug Club Phonics, and again, they are downloadable. So they're available for reception and Key Stage 1, and they correspond directly to the Bug Club Phonics summative assessments. So that they are signposted from the assessments themselves. We've also got that schedule of assessment, which I showed earlier on, which is in the pace and planning section of the landing page, and assessment is also embedded within the teaching and assessment guides and in the termly planning documents there. So there is consistency across the whole platform and all of our resources with regards to assessments and when they should occur, if you like. Okay, so I would definitely recommend that you have a look at that assessment trackers guide before you embark on using the tracker itself in its kind of new form. So the way it's been organised, so each assessment, you can see a screen grab there of what the assessment tracker looks like now. And those of you who have been using the assessment tracker in the past will note that we used to have just green for yes and red for no on the tracker. We've now got an amber colour as well. So the tracker has been updated to reflect 3 different groups of progress, if you like. So each assessment, as I started telling you just now, is listed on the schedule of assessment, and in the termly assessment has its own tab down here at the bottom of the tracker. So every single assessment that we've got in Bug Club Phonics is listed at the bottom there. You can see on the screen grab that we've got an overview which pulls the data from all of the assessments together. And on this one, which is a reception one, we've got the entry assessment, and then we've got the week 3 assessment, the phase 2 assessment, and then it goes on, you can't see all of it, through all of the assessment sheets that would be covered during the reception year. And all of the content that is assessed in those sheets is on the tracker as well. And then by marking a Y for yes and an N for no, an entry is made, as you can see there on the slide, to record a correct or incorrect response to each assessment question. And then that overview tab that you can see at the bottom there shows overall performance across multiple assessments. So it draws on all of that data, which gives it a broader picture of progress over time. So the colour indicators themselves correlate to the new catch-up guidance as well, which is super useful. So they're signposted from the assessments to the tracker, and then signposted out of the tracker towards the catch-up guidance to show what those different groups of progress, those different children's needs, how they can be supported through catch-up. So we suggest that you undertake assessment activities frequently throughout the whole programme, and mapped out for you, obviously, as a suggestion in that termly plan. And in addition to these assessments that you can see on the tracker, we've also got further assessments in the form of the digital games, obviously, in the programme as well. And then just a closer look at those tabs. I just thought it might be useful just to pull those out. So the top one there that you can see is for reception. So you've got that overview there, which draws on all of that data, and then it systematically goes through all of the different assessments that you would run through there. And it obviously sort of provides you with data for each child and on a class-wide level with that sort of colour banding system that we've got. And then the bottom one is the year 1 assessment. And you can see there the overview. You've got assessment sheets 1 and 2, 3 and 4 again occurring there, because in the termly plan as it is now, we recommend that you reassess the children at the beginning of year 1 with the reception assessments in order to ensure that there are absolutely no knowledge gaps. And then if there are any knowledge gaps, that they are plugged, basically, and that you kind of interact with that information. Okay, so reflecting on progress in the tracker. So some people have asked me, well, how do I track progress if I rerun an assessment, which is obviously what you would do, having provided some catch-up and some intervention for children for any knowledge gaps that you would have identified. So how could you indicate that in the tracker? So if you rerun an assessment after catch-up work, you can re-enter the new results of that assessment in the tracker. Now that would overwrite the previous data, so only the most recent assessment results will show. So that would allow teachers to see the current progress of their class and of individuals, and reassess any further catch-up needs, if you like. But if you would like to add more information to the tracker so that you can really sort of have a view on the progress that a child's made, if you like, from a certain date to another date, and look at previous results, there are several ways to do this. So the date of assessment and and indicating reassessment, that's an option. So in the data entry pages of the tracker, there's a space to indicate the initial date of the assessment. And there's also space in the column under each child's name to indicate the date of any resit. So that's quite important, actually. If you want to be able to have a view of where a child was and the progress that they've made through colour bands, then I would advise that you would input that information under the child's name so that you've got that kind of protected in the tracker itself. And then moving through to the catch-up guidance itself. So catch-up measures, as we know, can involve revisiting lesson materials, which is absolutely fine if that's what those children need, and reviewing digital practice game content to support learners who may progress at a different pace. So I think it's acceptable to say that there are different levels of catch-up needed for different knowledge gaps and for different children's needs. The assessment skills and catch-up activities chart, we've got a catch-up activities chart and an extra catch-up exercise bank now, which has been uploaded onto the platform, which outline an absolute wealth of flexible catch-up tasks that can be used to reinforce learning. So how do these work? So first point of call is the catch-up guidance itself. So you've got that sort of top-level overview of the programme's ethos when it comes to catch-up and what that means for the programme. So we say that catch-up sessions should run concurrently with the main teaching programme. The ethos of Bug Club Phonics is that keeping the whole class together is an integral part of the programme, and therefore all catch-up exercises and activities should be done in addition to the main Bug Club Phonics framework. That's not to say that there may be some circumstances where that's not appropriate. And, you know, again, that's a sort of whole school judgment, a teacher judgment to be able to sort of justify why you have made a kind of a change there. And I think as long as you've got that sort of judgment to back up your rationale, if you like, then that's okay. So while the aim is for every child to master the phonics skills being taught, it's not necessary for every child to obtain mastery before the class continues forward in the teaching progression. So that's about keeping the whole class together. So our catch-up sessions can take place in either one-to-one or nurture group settings, as we call them in Bug Club Phonics, depending on the child's level of understanding, and should be conducted in short 10 to 15 minute increments. And we say that catch-up or intervention should last up to about 2 weeks before you reassess that child. Assessment plays an essential part in determining what type of catch-up and intervention may be appropriate for each child at any given time during the programme as well. And assessment is managed via two methods, which is summative and formative. We'll have a look at a slide which captures that in a minute. So just to capture what I've just said then about catch-up, sessions should run concurrently with the whole class session. They're either going to be one-to-one, as you know, or nurture group, and they would last, depending on the child's level of understanding, and there should be sort of short, sharp bursts, 10 to 15 minutes, and last for around 2 weeks before kind of reassessing and then inputting that new data into that tracker under the child's name. And then just to capture that summative and formative assessment, so we have summative assessments, which we've talked about in the programme, which are in the entry assessment, the week 3 assessment, the phase assessments, the mock tests, which prepare children for the phonics screening check, and assessment sheets 1 to 13. And then, of course, we've also got formative assessment built into the programme. So based around teacher observation of performance in classroom activities, including class-wide teaching sessions, the online games and activities, and of course the reading of decodable books. And I will say at this point that formative assessment is really important from a teaching perspective when you're using the teaching screens. If you're using the teaching screens for your teaching and learning cycle, it's really important to have that contact with the children during that time in order to be able to observe their progress. So going back to the catch-up sessions themselves and how they sort of correlate to those assessment trackers. So you can see there that we have 3 different bands, which we've seen on the tracker itself. So the green would mean that a child was achieving mastery, considered secure, and may benefit, actually, and again, this comes down to teacher judgment, to additional reading practice to develop fluency. And then children falling into the amber group are considered emerging, and that's the terminology that we use in the programme, and will benefit from nurture group, that small group activity, to collectively consolidate specific skills that you would identify in the assessments. And then children who fall into that red category, who your bottom 20%, of the children that are going to need that more intensified one-to-one catch-up activity over a longer period of time, probably. So in the catch-up guidance, we've got clarity now around what catch-up activity correlates with individual assessments. So you can just see the screen grab there. Term 1A, we've got that week 3 assessment, and then we've got descriptors there to show that any child achieving green on the tracker for that assessment are achieving mastery, and they can do the following: give the sound of the letters, orally blend the CVC words, blend and read the CVC words. And then children falling into the amber category need to go over the relevant whiteboard sessions and use extra exercise sessions for the letters where mistakes were made. So in the past, we just had suggestions around going back over the same content. In addition to that, now we've got the additional exercise guidance, and it shows you at the bottom here with some activities or exercises which are aligned to that assessment for each sort of colour band. So for amber, the extra catch-up exercises would be around the GPCs that they are struggling to recognise, around oral blending, for example, and blending for reading. And then for children who fall into the red category for week 3 assessment, there are some suggestions there. We'll read all of them, you can see them. Using the following tools to practice saying and introducing the phonemes. And then again, you've got some additional extra catch-up exercises for children that fall into that category around GPC recognition, oral blending, and blending for reading as well. So if you go and take a look at the documents we've got around catch-up, you will see that every single assessment has got, it follows this model, so that you've got suggestions for catch-up for children that fall into any of those categories based on your tracker output, if you like, or tracker input and then output. Okay, so that's your catch-up. So we've also improved the magnetic whiteboard. So the magnetic board itself is a blank screen that you can be used to continue your teaching of phonics. So we've been asked a lot, well, what opportunities are there in the programme for children to practice? So we've got the magnetic whiteboards, which have been improved recently. They could be used outside of the Bug Club Phonics lesson structure for that additional practice and consolidation. You can access the asset bank from this screen, and you can find the magnetic board, by the way, on that main landing page of Bug Club Phonics. And you can now filter by phase and by unit, and all of the sentences and all of the words used in every single unit in the programme come up, as you can see on those slides. So these are super useful and shouldn't be underestimated, I don't think, for that additional practice. We've also got improved functionality for all of the teaching screens. It's a more responsive design. We've got a pen now, and you can change the colour. So that's also useful for that kind of follow-up of that additional practice. Speeding through now, because I've just looked at the clock and I'm running out of time. We've also got integrated professional development and parental engagement, a whole dedicated section, and you can see the screen grab there, classroom support. So please do delve into that. The new content that we've got, a 7 live action video showing a lesson, every part of the lesson. That is well worth a look. A real life teacher teaching Bug Club Phonics. I think that's really, really valuable. So please do go and have a look at that. We've also got 6 units of PD materials that have been added to your subscription. I've screen grabbed a couple of them there. We've got a unit 4, which covers phase 1 phonics. And we've also got unit 5 there, phonics for parents and carers. So again, for your school, to ensure continuity, if you like, well worth having a look at those units there as well, which got PowerPoints and facilitator notes as part of them. So please do go and have a look at the kind of additional content we've now got in classroom support. We've also updated our graphing charts and sound maps in line with customer feedback. So improvements include all maps and charts being available now as part of your subscription, so you can print the resources at a size that works best for your class. And anecdotally, I'm getting a lot of feedback that says that that's really, really useful, that people are able to print in different sizes, send them home to parents, and kind of really adapt them to the needs of their class. And you can also have them in colour and in black and white. So that's really, really helpful as well. And we're nearly at the end of our session, but I just wanted to kind of capture some FAQs, some sort of frequently asked questions that I get really around the following. So just very quickly, because we are running out of time. So handwriting, just to kind of give you clarity on this. So Bug Club Phonics doesn't necessarily seek to replace your normal handwriting programme, but it does recognise that letter formation helps kinesthetic consolidation of grapheme acquisition and spelling as well. And the teaching of letter formation accompanies the introduction of every grapheme in the programme, and the talking through element of such teaching also supports children's cognitive processes. And if you teach cursive script formation in your school, then there is also an additional tab to support that. And then we have daily time allocation. So the time that it takes to deliver the whole class sessions depends on your familiarity with the programme and how you choose to use the more flexible elements of the programme, such as the video clips and the alphabet song and so on. And then the independent work that we provide in the way of the PCMs don't necessarily have to be done immediately after the whole class session. That's up to you as well, but it should be completed obviously before the next session if possible. And the same goes for the games. And then classroom organisation. It's recommended that children are kept together for the daily sessions in spite of different ability levels. As I said, there may be some circumstances where that's not appropriate, and that's absolutely fine, down to your judgment. So that's up to you. And then that catch-up should run alongside that whole class session as well. And then magnetic letters, finally. So there are lots of questions around these as well. So during Key Stage 1, so year 1 and 2, you may find that early on, the class no longer needs to use them individual magnetic boards for spelling and letter formation. So that is, again, down to you as a teacher judgment. I would get them using a pencil and paper as soon as possible, but then, of course, some children will obviously still need to use those magnetic letters as well. And finally from me, we've got 2 slides left and we're just over time. So we do currently a flash sale, 55% off selected titles and packs. This 55% off is off Book Club independent books, so those fully decodable books that are in line with the progression of the programme. So you may want to take advantage of that. Do get in touch if you'd like to. And also our Reading Corner, Book Club Reading Corner books are for reading for pleasure and on themes that children would like to read themselves, and they can choose them themselves. There's also 55% off selected titles of those as well. So please do get in touch if you'd like more information on those. And then another question that I get quite often is, how can we keep in touch with you? Well, there are lots of different ways. We've got the Bug Club Phonics roadmap. We'll send you a link to this in the follow-up as well, which tries to keep you updated on any updates that we are planning to make or we have already made to the programme. So I'll send you a link to that as a follow-up. We've got a primary literacy newsletter where we also update our customers on adaptations and updates to the programme. You can sign up for that. I will send you a link. We've also got our Book Club Literacy Facebook group, which many of you, I'm sure, are part of, and that's a very collaborative group where you can ask me and my colleagues questions, and we aim to answer those relatively quickly. And you can also get in touch to arrange an appointment with one of our partnership team as well. Lots of different ways there. And also, when you go into ALP, when you're teaching phonics, we do endeavour to put notifications on there as well to update you on any updates to the programmes. There's lots of different ways, but please do keep in touch and keep your questions coming. I hope that helped you. It was rather swift, helped you to see what we've got and why we've kind of added those updates to Book Club Phonics, and that we will be continuing to take your feedback and continue with our updates. Thank you very much for joining me, and I will be speaking to many of you soon, I am sure.